All right. Thank you for buying me a little bit of time. That helped me out anyway. And that was all a big setup for what I'm talking about today. So we continue on our quest for thin places. Last week we talked about clarifying the why behind the what. Before that we talked about the permission of deconstructing our faith, which actually should be something that we honor throughout our life, to continually reevaluate what we believe and why we believe it. That should be a constant throughout our life, but somehow religion in its self-protectionism has made that sort of a forbidden thing, and we celebrate doubling down on core beliefs rather than ever wondering what more is there to discover. And so deconstructing, which happens in every other facet of our life and in nature itself, is a normal process and should be a process in your faith. Part of that process is clarifying the why behind the what, which we looked at last week. And this week we're taking a look at the idea of removing things that maybe no longer need to be there. The author says it this way, that spirituality is more about removing your barriers than adding more stuff. Spirituality, in stark contrast to the complexities of our modern lives, is a journey of subtraction rather than addition. It's about acknowledging and releasing what no longer brings us joy. Busyness, noise, social media, and 24-hour news cycles often cloud our perception of the world, making the need for subtraction even more crucial. Jesus actually followed this in various ways and got in trouble for it, by the way. He subtracted dogmatic ideas that were no longer helpful or good. A couple famous ones got him in trouble. One time, after doing some ministry somewhere, Jesus and his disciples were walking along a road, and there was some grain on the side of the road. And they picked it, and they began eating that grain because they were hungry. Unfortunately, they picked that grain on the Sabbath. And on the Sabbath, you are supposed to do no work. And some religious fuddy-duddies saw that and called him out on it for breaking the Sabbath law. What kind of Jewish teacher leader are you that doesn't even know how to follow one of the fundamental Sabbath laws? And Jesus just simply quipped back, dude, the guys are hungry. And the Sabbath was made for humankind. Humankind was not made for the Sabbath. In other words, it's there for us. It's not for us to be ruled by it. He clarified that throughout his Sermon on the Mount, which we spent an entire year studying in 2025. Again and again, in one particular section, he starts off his statement, you have heard it taught this way, I'm telling you to think about it this way. That's a removal of old ways of thinking in favor of different interpretations. Another time in the Gospel of John, in John chapter 9, similar thing happens where he gets in trouble. He finds this guy who's been blind since birth, and he sees him. He asks for help. Jesus spits down into the dirt, makes this weird little mud doughy mixture, and puts that stuff over his eyes. Tells him to go wash in the pool of Siloam. And this guy goes and he washes off the mud paste over his eyes, and suddenly, for the first time in his life, he can see. The religious leaders catch wind of this, that a blind guy can see, which has all kinds of theological implications. Rather than celebrating the fact that a miracle has happened right before their eyes, they get upset with Jesus. Why? Because he violated Sabbath law. He made the mud biscuit thingy on a Sabbath. And you're not supposed to knead bread on Sabbath. And by extension, mud pies are off limits too. Seriously, that got him in trouble. Jesus was okay removing things that did not need to be there. I'm not exactly sure when this happened in his life, if it happened gradually over his life or if it was after his baptism where he just saw everything differently and that started him off in a new direction. I don't know, but he was comfortable removing. The author gives us this great example, which I've heard before, but it's so good. Michelangelo's David, this beautiful statue made of granite. This incredible feature. By the way, you're welcome for not giving you the full Monty version today. It would make Carrie giggle too much. She wouldn't be able to stop laughing the whole time. And I wanted to keep it. But anyway, Michelangelo famously was asked, so how did you get this vision? How did you possibly pull this off? And he just, very sheepishly said, all I did was started chipping away all the things that weren't David and got this. Well, there's an interesting way to think about that with our spirituality. Maybe there's something we need to hear about that with finding our true selves. What do we need to chip away in our lives and in our thinking to make way for that? Paulo Coelho, Brazilian author, said, maybe the journey isn't so much about becoming anything. Maybe it's about unbecoming everything that isn't really you, so that you can be who you were meant to be in the first place. There was a Catholic leader named Thomas Merton. He was the Richard Rohr before Richard Rohr. And he would go around the world and wrote books talking about the true self, that our true self is who we really long to be, who we are with the Spirit of God in us, with all of our unique genetic makeup in our place and time, but as much as possible, free of all the trappings of all the nonsense that we pick up along the way that don't help us. Author Dana Hicks offers this, that spiritual growth is usually not about learning new information and new techniques, but about unlearning lousy thought processes and bad habits. The 14th century German mystic Meister Eckhart said the divine is not found in the soul by adding anything, but by a process of subtraction. As Jesus would say, the kingdom of God is inside of you. It's not that the divine is trying to hide from us. It's just that, like Michelangelo's David, there is so much marble to chip away to get to the beauty inside. And that's our challenge in this removal time. One more great quote from Rumi, the Sufi poet. If you could get rid of yourself just once, the secret of secrets would open to you. The face of the unknown, hidden beyond the universe, would appear on the mirror of your perception. Rumi is one of those voices of a guy who did just that. And if you've read much of his poetry, you know that this guy mingled with the divine. His understanding of love is just deeply profound and speaks to us today. It's beautiful, beautiful stuff. So this subtraction stuff, if that's what it's all about, why don't we do it? If it's so obvious, why don't we just do it? Why isn't that? Why isn't it only just a very small group of people that might be struggling with the subtraction issue? Because everybody else already gets it. Well, there's probably a range of reasons, and Dana Hicks gets to one of these. Has to do with this addition thing. And he draws a link with consumerism. He says, in a consumeristic world like the one we live in, it is natural to think that if we get more learning, more attainment, more achievement, more performance, more success, then we will find the spirituality we seek. While this has a definite appeal to our egos, recognizing the divine and responding to the divine is, in fact, more about removing the debris we have accumulated to make room for the divine to take root and blossom. How many of you guys and gals lack storage in your home? Oh, you know where I'm going. So Lynn and I, we've done some remodeling in our house. And I'm doing a lot of it myself, so it's a slower process. And one of the things I'm doing is changing out the floors. And when you change out the floors, that means you got to take all the stuff out so that you can put the new floors down. And we decided a good idea probably would be to, as we would go into, say, like our kitchen pantry, that gives us an opportune time to reevaluate our kitchen pantry. Now, you need to understand that before the flooring project began, if you walked into our kitchen pantry, you couldn't walk in very far because there was stuff on the floor, cases of beverage or whatnot, and stuff we just put from the kitchen table because we didn't know what else to do with it. And then all the shelves going up, which go up 9 feet high or so, were pretty much full. No room. And, so many times we'd look at that and say, well, we obviously need a bigger house because we need a bigger pantry to hold all our stuff. You know what happened? As we decided to go through our stuff for our entire kitchen, because we did a kitchen remodel and it was a lot, we went through all of our kitchen stuff. You're not going to believe this. We have plenty of room for our stuff. somehow, miraculously, there's room for all of our things. And we can actually find the stuff, and we can see the stuff right where it's supposed to be. It's unbelievable. How about with our lives? You know what I'm saying? Have you ever done such a thing? Maybe you do a once-a-year spring cleaning kind of thing, and you loosen up and you realize it's not that you don't have enough room, it's that you got too much stuff. But we in a consumeristic culture, we add stuff all the time. And I would venture to say that we do that in our spiritual life as well, with our faith. I do that, and actually, I don't make it any easier for you because I really believe in this idea of series based on books that we can kind of wrestle with, because then you can read the book that we're doing, and that's only going to deepen your understanding and mess with you a little bit more. But what does that do? It adds a whole other thing for you to do with your spiritual life. So sorry about that, but that's probably not the only thing going on. There are probably things that we have acquired in our life itself, which are restricting us from doing and being the people that we want to be. Not just spiritual stuff, but just the way we do our life. We are filled with stuff, and because we live in a consumer-driven society, we are constantly barraged with things to tell us we need more stuff. We need better stuff. The stuff you have sucks. You need to improve your stuff so that you are at least as good as those people around you. That's the constant draw that is on our market system. Well, it's not just the accumulation of stuff. There's more to say about this. It has to do with our pace. Contributor to the New York Times, Tim Kreider, says, he reflected on that in our world, busyness serves as a kind of existential reassurance, a hedge against emptiness. Obviously, your life cannot possibly be silly or trivial or meaningless if you are so busy, completely booked, in demand every hour of the day. Have you ever felt unnerved because you weren't busy? Have you ever wondered what people might think of you if you weren't busy? Have you ever felt in conversation with somebody, either coming out of your mouth or somebody else, that you or somebody else exaggerated how busy they were in an effort to say, look at me and how busy I'm in my life? Maybe in some dark ways, how important I am because I'm so gosh darn busy. We find value in being busy in a culture that values busyness. And so, my natural question for you with these things: how have you fallen prey to our consumeristic, achievement-focused, must-be-busy culture? And I'm not asking if you have fallen prey. This is in the water we drink, the air we breathe. We all have to manage this reality. More stuff is going to solve the problem. Busier is better. It means you're successful. Meanwhile, the years go by, and we don't feel any richer for it. What do we do with this? What do we do with this? There was a great wisdom teacher in the Christian tradition. His name was Dallas Willard. Great thinker, would speak around the nation on all things Christian and church and all that, and just a brilliant guy. And he would pack out conferences and all that. And he was in a conference one time, and he had this exchange with somebody in the audience. What advice would you give someone who wants to be spiritually healthy? And after a long pause, Dr. Willard said, you must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. And the questioner thought for a minute and said, that is good. Anything else? And Dr. Willard said, there is nothing else. That is everything. Eliminate hurry from your life. Breathe that one for a second. What do you think about that, coming from such a wise voice? Maybe it's not a churchman you need to hear from. Maybe you need to hear from a great psychologist and psychiatrist whose name was Carl Jung. He said, hurry is not of the devil, it is the devil. Hurry. Ram Dass, who was a highly regarded American spiritual teacher, offered this: be still. The quieter you become, the more you can hear. The quieter you become, the more you can hear. But you know what I've discovered in my own life, at least in the early stages, and as I've witnessed with many of you who have ventured into breathing exercises and meditation, that you would flat out disagree with Ram Dass, because I've heard you say the quieter you become, the more nutty you get. Because it drives you crazy. Anybody ever struggle with that? Yeah. I saw 8 hands go up. You're the honest ones in the room. Right? This hurriedness that we have as our culture, could it be killing us? Could it at least be robbing us of life and of a depth of life that we simply don't have time for? And maybe you think to yourself, well, that may be somebody's problem, but it's not my problem. So good news, I've got a quiz for you to find out from the author whether or not you have hurry sickness. So see if any of these resonate with you. Do you find yourself speeding up through the day because you got to get through all your stuff? You got to get that list done or else. And it could be that your job is one of those that it's really heavy and you got to speed up to get all the things done. I can relate to that. That's the pastor's work. We're doing all kinds of stuff all the time, all at once, and it starts up again every week. This is the way it is. And many of your jobs are similar like that. But do you find yourself speeding up, which makes it hard to slow down and not hurry? I bet some of you are excellent multitaskers. 30 years ago or so with day timers and all that stuff, there was a lot of emphasis on learning to master the multitasking, right? And if you just had the right planning system and had it all laid out for you, you could do 5 or 6 things all at once. Do you know what brain experts are telling us now? Nobody can multitask. You might think you can, but all it means is those extra things you're doing beyond one, you're not doing very well. So it means that, and I know some of you know what I'm talking about, it means that if you're on a Zoom conference call and you're listening to some, smart person talk about whatever, important things, but you're checking your email because you're multitasking, you're taking advantage of things. Guess who's not paying any attention to what is being communicated? You're getting nothing out of that. Or have any of you ever gotten into an awkward situation where you're out to lunch or dinner with a friend, or you're just having a conversation with them, and all of a sudden you look over and you're mid-sentence and you look over and they're like this. And you're like, dude, I'm like in the middle of a story. And as the person who receives that, that's kind of offensive on some level, isn't it? And you may excuse it to say, all right. It must be really important, otherwise you wouldn't need to look and see how badly the Niners are getting beaten right now. But I know. But I bet you've been on the other end of that too. I wouldn't be surprised anyway. I know I have. Where I've done that very rude thing. Where somebody who's very important to me is talking to me, and for whatever reason, something buzzes, my wrist buzzes, and I see they got the message, and it could be important, so I got to check it real quick. And I check it and find out it probably wasn't that important. But checking it was really important not to do. And I've committed an offense. That's multitasking. That's a frame of it anyway. Just here, again, leading brain scientists say we can't do it. We can't do it. Very minor things maybe. Maybe you can drive your car and have a conversation with somebody while you're driving along. But even then, I would suggest that you are not driving as well as you could if you were just driving. So maybe you're a multitasker. That's a sign of hurry sickness. Another one would be clutter. Clutters are to-do lists, aren't they? Anytime we have clutter in our homes, if it's on our literal desktop or if it's on our computer desktop, those are all signs of things that need to be dealt with. To-dos. That means we are prone to hurrying to get those things through. It's on our mind. At least for me, that stuff drives me absolutely crazy. So most of the time, if you come like to my midweek praxis group, most of the time my office is pretty clean. You're not going to see a whole lot of piles on top. And if you look at my computer desktop, you're not going to see much on my computer desktop because I hate seeing piles of stuff, because it tells me I got to get that done, which kicks me into hurry gear so I can get it all done right away. Clutter does that, to me anyway. Maybe you have sunset fatigue. Sunset fatigue isn't that complicated, but I know that most of you have experienced this. That you go through your day, you're working, and you get home from work, and you are absolutely exhausted. You've got nothing left in the tank for what awaits you at home. I know this has been my case some days, and some days are like that. You can't get around it. That's life. It's going to happen. But when it becomes a systemic thing, a rhythm thing for our life, I wonder what that does. Now, I grew up in a household where workaholism was kind of a normative. And my dad's generation, that was celebrated. It's still celebrated in our country, by the way. It's a weird dynamic. On the one hand, we really elevate mental health and needing to take time and space for yourself. And at the very same time, we celebrate people who burn themselves out and just go all the time as a sign of success. It's a very weird tension that we hold. And it's still real with us today. It was worse a generation ago. And my dad gave it his all with his career. And when he got home, he was exhausted. And us 4 kids knew it. Because even though he was present on the couch, he wasn't really with us. I mean, he'd be there if we needed a tip or some help with something, but he wasn't with us. Do you know what I mean? And I know that when I've been that way and I've come home absolutely exhausted, where I'm just spent because I left it all here, it means that the person I'm going home to isn't going to get anything from me because I've got nothing to give. That's a sign of hurry sickness. And when we start to see that pattern in our lives, it's a problem. It's anti-shalom. It's anti-shalom. It's anti all the things that Jesus stood for. If you need that little boost to say, oh, I should pay attention. And finally, and this is related to this last one I just did, is love impaired. So, love at its depth of all shapes and forms, love to develop to its depth takes time. And if we are hurried, we will never have that time. I don't care if it's just a deep friendship. It could be your kids. It could be your significant other, your spouse, your parents. If you want a relationship of depth, it will not happen on the fly. It will not happen because you rushed it. Just a quick little aside, because I know you love it when I take quick little asides. There was a book that was released, very, very popular. It was a bestseller a few years ago called The 5 a.m. Club. Anybody ever heard of that? So I was at a conference a year ago, and I decided, all right, what's up with this 5 a.m. club? Because I always have this desire to be a morning person. I am not a morning person in any possible way, but I've always been a little jealous of morning people because they could get so much more done because they're up so much early, and if I could just become a morning person, right? So I thought, oh, well, maybe the 5 a.m. club guy's got something to say. So the 5 a.m. club is basically, in a nutshell, I'll save you a little bit of time, the whole gist of it is, wake up at 5 a.m. to get a whole lot more stuff done so that you have more time in your day to get more stuff done. That's the whole gist of it. But one of the things that cracked me up about the story was he talked about his relationships. And he's talking about the schedule of his day and kind of mapping out the day. And I'm like walking on a beach, which is supposed to be this relaxing thing. And I'm hearing about this guy who's like celebrating, this brand new insight and how good it is and how it makes you so wildly successful. I guess he had $1 gazillion or whatever. But anyway, he talks about his relationships, like his significant relationships. And he carved like 30 minutes a day for that relationship. And I'm like, come on, man. Come on. Tell me about the trail of relationships you have behind you because you are so busy being successful in everything except your key relationships. Am I preaching to anybody out here? Or you were so successful in everything except your spiritual connection with God because you only gave God that 3 minutes at the start of your day, which thank God you did. How awful would you be without those 3 minutes, you know? You see what I'm saying? Love impaired requires, to be not love impaired requires time and energy, both of which we do not have if we are hurried. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. And by the way, it's an interesting phenomenon to me, because I've seen this with myself a couple of times, and then also with people that I know and love who ventured into retirement. And what I'm about to tell you just reminds me that busyness doesn't really have to do with your work schedule. It's more of an attitude toward how we approach our life. And so 10 years or so after my parents entered into retirement, I was catching up with them and talking to my mom and said, well, Mom, how you doing? How's your day today? Oh, it was busy. It was really busy. Like, oh, all right. Tell me about your day. Well, long pause. Well, we went to get groceries, early afternoon after we grabbed some lunch at Burger King. And that was it. but the way she organized her day and all the things in between, it made her feel like she had this really full, busy day. And she really didn't have a super full, busy day. But I've met plenty of people who feel like they've had a busy day because they did one thing. They ran one errand. What does that suggest about our mindset or our perspective of how we enter into the day? This hurry sickness thing is real. And it's real, I bet, for you. So my question for you is, why do you hurry? And then 4 more whys behind that. Because my hunch is that you're going to find out that your surfacey level answer to why you hurry isn't really getting at the depths of your being, of why you feel a need to hurry. There are deeper things at play here that are worth examining and worth finding out about, that I hope you'll take time for. Well, some of this hurry stuff, hurry is one of those major things that we need to remove from our life in order to thrive, in order to become who we really want to be. And sometimes the removal has to do with constructs that are theological, that are dogmatic, maybe going against doctrine that needs to go away. We've done a lot of that work here at Crosswalk over time. You know, doctrines were created for a reason, and usually a really good reason. And then over time, doctrines shift and they get reevaluated, and some traditions let go of those doctrines, and some of those reasons lead to brand new denominations, which is why you don't just have Catholics and Protestants, which is what it was like hundreds of years ago, but you have Catholics, and then you have like 1,000 different flavors of Protestants because of different disagreements over doctrine. And that's part of our reality. There was a story Dana Hicks shares. He grew up in a tradition that was heavily informed by John Calvin. John Calvin was he started Reformed theology, and in his theology, he lifted up the principle of the depravity of humankind, that we are depraved utterly from the moment we draw our first breath. Kind of built off of the Adam and Eve fall story, that enters in sin, and now the rest of us, we're born with this thing, we can't get rid of it. And so he's having dinner with a friend of his who also was raised in this tradition. He's sharing some good news with him, like, hey, I really came into some good fortune lately. And his friend says to him, oh, I'm so happy that this thing happened to you. You really deserve it. And as soon as Dana Hicks heard that word, you deserve it, he kind of got anxious and cringy. Because in the theological tradition that raised him, which was Church of the Nazarene, which had inklings of this depraved origin story, he felt and was told that he didn't deserve anything because at his core, he was depraved. And so to believe that anything good should come to him was against his core. Does that make any sense? And so as he recognized that this was happening in him, he ended up with this scene. Then we both laughed and drank a toast to Martin Luther, John Calvin, and the other Theobros of the Reformation. Thank you, Reformed Doctrine of Total Depravity, for your service in my life. As a young person, it probably kept my younger self away from self-destructive behaviors and got me thinking about what divine grace looks like. I won't miss you, Total Depravity. Goodbye. And I hope that you'll take Dana Hicks' model as an example to follow, because probably there are positions of faith that you kind of know you're done with. In the Baptist tradition, some of the holy cows we barbecued here had to do with a view of the Bible as inerrant and infallible. That the Bible cannot be wrong and is not wrong, no matter what it says or how much it conflicts with science or anything else out there. We recognize that that idea itself was a very late invention and was never a core belief of the original people itself. And so along the way, as hard as that was, and by the way, most Protestant churches still have that in their boilerplate belief statements. The only reason we believe the Bible is because it's inerrant and infallible, because God essentially wrote it. And what I'm saying, and more scholars are saying, is that was made up to strengthen the position of the Bible. But you talk to Jesus, you talk to Paul, they never would have agreed with that. So if that's the case, if Jesus and Paul and their contemporary Jewish scholars and rabbis would not adhere to that, would not ever sign off on that, then why are we holding on to it? Maybe there's something more the Bible has to offer than just being a drop-down memo from God. Maybe that's one of them for you. I don't know, but I bet there are some. And my encouragement to you is to, as some of these things bubble up, and you know it's time to let some ideas go, hold a funeral. Mark the moment. Write something like this in your journal. Maybe light a candle. Say, thank you, God, for whatever thing, that you were told. Maybe for you it's that, I don't know, that if you drank any alcohol whatsoever, then that was a problem. No disrespect to alcoholism and all that, the terrors and the horrors that brings, but that idea that anybody who drinks a drop, that's another Baptist thing. Where does that even come from? Maybe that's not a healthy way to live. Maybe that also shapes our eyes about how we view anybody who drinks anything at all. It certainly did in my upbringing. You were okay unless we found out you dared drink a beer on a Saturday afternoon in the heat. Then we're going to think differently of you. The things that we have in our head shape our vision. What things in your head need to die? That's the question. Finally. Yeah. Well, I thought I had one more quote here for you. Well, you're not going to get it, so there you go. Too bad for you. Oh, here it is. I don't think it's going to be on this screen for some reason. But Richard Rohr said this, and then a closing prayer. He says, "We don't save our soul, we discover it. We don't go there and try to make ourselves holy. We wake our souls up." Not that, guys. Don't give me that yet. Richard Rohr said, "We don't save our soul, we discover it. We don't go there and try to make ourselves holy. We wake our souls up. We're already united with the divine. The problem is we don't believe it. And we don't believe it because we need to remove some of the things that are in our head, in our vision, that are getting in the way." So I want to have us take just a moment of quiet and sit with silence and see if the Spirit might be whispering. And then we're going to end with this serenity prayer, which many of you are probably familiar with. We'll get to this in a minute. But first, if you just close your eyes with me, take another deep breath. And I'm just asking the question, is there anything at all that perhaps the Spirit of God is behind, whispering in your ear? Things you needed to hear, things you need to change. Is there anything? Just asking you to recognize and own it. You might even say to yourself in your head, I am hearing God say to me, slow down, stop hurrying, examine your life, stop needing to be so busy. I don't know what it is, but I bet you do. God, we are here because we claim to want to follow the teaching and the model of Jesus. We say that with our lips. But we remember that Jesus is one who regularly broke away for times of retreat, to be still, to think, to pray, to breathe, to meditate, to give himself time and space to see the beauty of the earth around him and let it speak to him. He started his ministry with a 40-day retreat to get clarity, to get his head on straight before entering back into the world. Let us have ears to hear. He's one who started the day with meditation and prayer at the beginning so he could begin without a hurry. God, speak to us and help us have the strength and courage to remove what needs to be removed. Now, if you'll turn your gaze with me to the screen, let's say the serenity prayer out loud together as we go. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardships as the pathway to peace, taking, as Jesus did, this wounded world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that love will make things right if I surrender to love's will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy in love forevermore. Amen. Thanks for coming today. Hope you have a slow rest of your day today, and maybe I'll see you ease your way into a service here at 4 o'clock. Thanks for coming.